Hi there, and welcome to this episode of Write With Me at IELTS Juice. Today, we have a report, and this one is an interesting one. It's very straightforward, but there are some hidden elements here. Let me read the rubric first. So it says, the graph below shows average carbon dioxide or CO2 emission per person in the United Kingdom, Sweden, Italy, and Portugal between 1967 and 2007. So if you look at the chart, which is a line chart, you can see we have 1967 all the way to 2007. That's there. We have 4 countries with different lines, and one is dotted, one is solid line, the other is dashed, the other is dashed and dotted. So there are different figures, but you don't need to know the names of different lines. That's just completely besides the point. Don't worry about the names, and I just said for distinction and for clarification. Then on the side you can see that these numbers like 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, these numbers are emissions in metric tons. And please pay attention to the word ton and how it is spelled. We don't want to come up with the other variation. There's a slight difference between them, so just, we are not all scientists. So just go ahead and copy and make sure that that spelling, that version of ton is the one that you actually write throughout your report. Okay, with these elements out of the way, the first thing we need to, right after reading this, to think about and come up with is, yes, which tense is going to be the dominant grammatical tense for our report? Let's look at the dates. It starts from 1967 and it ends in 2007. So it's all in the past. It has nothing to do with the present. So these two are definitely out of the way. Let me get rid of them. There is no future. We are left with only past simple. I'm going to put it here. This is interesting and important. The other day, one of my students was asking me why we do that. And I explained. Instead of putting and making your brain handle lots of information at the same time, at the exam, under the stress, under the exam situation, if you simply just write it somewhere, so every time you move around, your eye sees that the tense should be this, well, you are going to do a huge service to your brain. Your brain will thank you because you take some of the data off the brain. The brain doesn't have to process the data and remember the data all the time. It's over here. This becomes your eye's responsibility, not your brain's. Your brain will be focused on execution, on making sure you don't make errors, on making sure you come up with the most beautiful words, the best grammatical structures ever. So this is helpful. Take it off the main element and put it on the side so that your eyes can always see the grammar must be past simple. Now we can start. So how do we start? First, of course, we need to identify what type of visual we're talking about. So this is the first sentence. Good. This is a line graph or line chart, and that's the type of the visual. What does it show? Well, I can see the average carbon dioxide emission per person. So it's on average, it shows the amount of carbon dioxide, which is also known as CO2, that every individual in these 4 countries emitted in the years in the years given. That is also going to be added there, but just these lines that they go up and down, they show the average carbon emission for every individual. Now let's look at the focus. I mean, what are the limits? One is time. We're only talking about 1967 to 2007. Nothing else. Nothing before, nothing after. And since it is a line chart, we actually can see the trend. So you may have an idea on the data between 1977, for example, and 1987, because the line chart is there. So you can look at the data and you can see what happens. So we do have data in between these years. What else limits us? The countries. It's not about all the planets, all the countries on the planet. It's all, the chart actually is all about 4 countries. United Kingdom, Sweden, Italy, Portugal. Done. Anything else that is going to limit us? I don't see anything at the moment. What is the next sentence? And you can see my hand, so I'm doing a trick here. I am not a David Copperfield apprentice, but hey, we need to come up with an overview. So I am going to say the next sentence is going to be my overview. Now what's an overview? Well, let's look at the chart, the line chart. I can see that United Kingdom remained the top throughout the period. So the citizens in the UK emitted more carbon dioxide per person in comparison to the other 3 countries. That can be one significant point. I also notice that United Kingdom and Sweden experienced a generally downward trend versus Italy and Portugal, who experienced a relatively upward trend, with different variations, of course, but generally speaking, the trend for these 2 countries was upward. Also, I can notice that Portugal remained the least country among the other 4 in emitting CO2 per person until 2007, when it was joined by Sweden. That can be also a significant point. So we need to decide. We can decide which one to start with. You might say, I'm going to start with Portugal. And based on that, I'm just going to completely get rid of Portugal, and that's it. I'm not going to talk about Portugal. I'm going to claim that Portugal was the least, and that's it, and goodbye. I'm going to focus on the other 3 countries. That can be one overview. I don't recommend. You still need to report some data about Portugal. That's not a good approach. You might want to also say, I'm gonna look at the amount of change. That requires a little bit of accuracy. The amount of change means, if you look at the chart again, Portugal went from almost 1 to almost 5.5. So 4 metric tons increase. That's 4, the amount of change. Italy from almost 4, but not exactly. It went to almost 8, but not again exactly. So it was like 3 something metric tons of change. Sweden went from 9-ish down to 5. So that's again another 4. So it's again relatively, Sweden is also relatively similar in change with Portugal. United Kingdom had the least amount of change, from almost 11 to almost 9. So that's another 2. This can be another way to approach it. A little bit difficult, but this one is actually good. We're getting to better approaches. Now let me tell you what I think. I would start, for the overview, I would say that United Kingdom was the highest throughout. And I'm gonna save that. And then I'm gonna say Portugal was the least throughout. Every time I write one overview, I automatically think of another to write for my conclusion, my very last element. Okay, so far so good. What else? Since I'm starting from the one that was the highest, but had a downward trend, my strategy would be like this. I am going to introduce a new body paragraph. Very good. And in this body paragraph, what I'm going to do is to focus on United Kingdom and Sweden, which both had a downward trend. And I need a topic sentence. I'm going to put it like this. So they had a downward trend there. That's a good idea. We talked about the United Kingdom here as the one which was highest in the period, and immediately after that we're including more data about United Kingdom and Sweden. So you also have more time to talk about that little peak Sweden experienced in around 1980, where it reached its peak and then it came back. It didn't bounce back, it came back all the way down and even further and had a downward trend. We can talk about that here with all the details necessary. In this paragraph, I am going to talk about the ones that had an upward trend. Which ones? Italy and Portugal. And the smart part was, when I analyzed it, my other paragraph is going to focus on Portugal. And now it's connected. Now every element in my report is going to be connected. United Kingdom. Let's stick to the vocabulary here. United Kingdom and Sweden. This one is Italy and Portugal, and this one is Portugal. Now that should be your report. This should be the layout of your report. We don't need to add anything. We are not allowed to add any other sentences or any other structures. This is basically what we need to present. Is it necessary to write another sentence for the conclusion? Not necessary. You can finish it by just simply writing that sentence. This is a report, so it is fine. Generally speaking, it is a common practice, both in letters and in reports, that you can have actually paragraphs like this, one sentence in the end to show that the report is over. I'm not a fan, but hey, that's acceptable. Before we wrap things up, one little point. When we talk about the details here in this chart, make sure that you put details, numbers, everything here in these two body paragraphs. Do not write numbers or details in the overview. They just need to be words telling us the trend, the general trend. For example, the United Kingdom remained the highest contributor to CO2 emission per person in the period. Portugal remained the least contributor to CO2 emission per person in the given period. That has no numbers in it. We don't give away a lot of details. We don't talk about the amount of change, the ups and downs, if it reached a plateau or it didn't reach a plateau. We don't talk about these small elements here, just sentences, words. Every single detail has to go into these two body paragraphs. And with that in mind, if you wish to see a report done, assessed, and improved at IELTS Juice, click over here. If you wish to see other reports planned like this, or maybe essays, click over here. And as always, eat healthy.